And we are live. Sorry, I got carried away with black today. Woo. Um, Hello, everybody. This is Soulestic Podcast, Soulestic Intelligence Podcast with your host, Amelie. And today we are going to be talking about awareness. And thank you guys so much for giving me an extra day. I I hit my face, and so I kind of got a little bit sick because I think you guys could hear it in my last ones, but the site still hasn't fully healed. It's still pretty numb. So doing my best. So I'm still healing. But today we are going to be talking about awareness. And awareness is a key piece to understanding yourself. In the past podcasts, we've talked about we've talked about narcissists and how they lack awareness. They lack awareness for others and even for themselves. And so the gauge of the awareness that you have is very, very vital to understanding your emotional body. Now, the empath, on the other hand, it has a heightened sense of awareness. So if you take an emotional frequency test, you can see kind of where you lie in that empathy, which is its own characteristic of emotional intelligence. And then you can also look at the situational awareness. I have very high empathy and social awareness. And part of the reason why is, as you're growing as a child, that is how you can gauge your environment. So you can act out in a narcissistic way or you can act out in an empathetic way. And we all have unique characteristics. And so, however, you are relating to those family members is going to carry along in your life. So, let me get to my notes here. Okay. So, when we are looking at developing I am from America. When we are looking at personal and social awareness, these two pieces are important and vital on understanding that emotional body, as I had mentioned. Good day, everybody. Thank you and welcome. Just getting into the teaching today. If you guys have any questions, please pop them in the chat. Okay, so when we are looking at developing these personal and social awareness, because it can be developed, so we will work on that. We are going to look at first personal awareness. So personal awareness is the key pieces to this is having a proper emotional self-assessment. So being able to identify the emotion that you're feeling in a certain situation. And a lot of the times we're using things that may be triggering to you. And so the emotional self-awareness piece is important because you want to identify how you're feeling. That way, once you kind of pin down what the feeling is, you can move into a space where you can then transmute it and process it in a proper way. And then having an accurate self assessment. So, not just saying I'm angry or I'm happy or I'm sad or I'm irritated, really diving deeper into that feeling. So, instead of saying I'm angry, let me pull up my emotions wheel here really quick. I know I got it somewhere. Yikes. All right. So, the emotions wheel is a great way for you to identify So you can find this anywhere. You can just Google emotions wheel and you'll come up with something like this. It doesn't have to necessarily be this one, but this one is very helpful. So when we look at the emotions wheel, we have these basic stages or basic emotions here. So we've got anger, fearful, bad, surprised, happy, sad, disgusted. And those are kind of basic. This part here is just basic. And to kind of dive deeper into, okay, I'm angry, but can I pin it down a little bit more? And so when we pin it down, it says let down, humiliated, bitter, mad, aggressive, frustrated, distant, critical. So once you start to identify a little bit deeper into I'm not just angry, but I'm angry because I feel humiliated. And then if you look down here, humiliated can even be brought down to an even deeper level of I've been disrespected and now I feel disrespected. And then you can pin the situation into that feeling of being disrespected. Or it says ridiculed, humiliated can be pinned down into ridiculed, and you can even go deeper into that. Now, doing that is going to help you identify what the situation is. So if you can look at the situation and kind of pin down that feeling, then you can sit with that. And as you have the emotion, it should not last a super long time. The emotion should be of, about 90 seconds of feeling that. And being able to accurately identify that feeling is going to give you a little bit more awareness, as you can see. Now, I could be angry. I'm angry because I'm humiliated. I feel humiliated. Oh, I feel ridiculed because of this situation, whatever that situation is that got you to that point. And then self confidence is also tied to this. So, as we look at personal awareness, we're also looking at having that self confidence of being a, it's going to give you a little bit more self worth because you're going to see how that feeling is impacting your life on a deeper level. So, the personal awareness piece is recognizing and understanding your own emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. So, as we look at the emotions, we're looking at the thoughts. Maybe it's not like outwardly expressed, maybe it's just still like a thought of like, I feel ridiculed. And you're sitting there in that. I think about this one coworker that I had. And, the way that she was treated or mistreated at work, and she didn't have the voice to stand up for herself and say, hey, I feel ridiculed. And even I've been in this position as well, but I'm just thinking about her and how she like lived with that at work for such a long period of time and didn't have that confidence to like stand up for herself and say, hey, when you talk to me this way, I feel ridiculed or I feel humiliated. She didn't do that. She didn't even speak up for herself, which would have given her a lot more self confidence at work. And I could say the same thing for myself. I'm not like limiting myself out of that, but it led her inability to really pin down her true feeling of what she was feeling in that moment was causing her to have a little lack of self-worth, or maybe that lack of self-worth was kind of fueling that, and so it just kept on feeding that lack of confidence. It kept on feeding that behavior of I'm just going to be accepting how this person is treating me. So when we look at this, obviously the emotions wheel, I highly recommend that you guys if you are interested in developing this part of yourself, as as I'm becoming certified, I'm going to be offering these frequency tests. But if your emotional self awareness or your assessment of yourself is lacking, then we start to develop ways of how are we going to raise this up so that you can accurately identify and then move through and transmute these feelings and or behaviors and or thoughts that are holding you back from being the best version of yourself. So the emotions wheel is an easy one. You have access to it. It's available online anywhere. There are multiple different kinds. You can even get them in posters. I've seen them on Etsy and 1111. I've seen them on Etsy, Amazon. Like you can get these posters anywhere really, but they're freely available if you just type in emotions wheel. I found when I was staring at the emotions wheel that I identified with a lot of the angry parts of the wheel. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of these feelings I'm feeling when I thought it was related to disgust. It was really just anger. And when I think about the feelings of anger that I was feeling, it wasn't towards anybody in particular. In fact, it was more an inward feeling of I'm angry inside because, I'm not pursuing my purpose. I'm not being my best version of myself. I'm lacking confidence in myself. You start to see how those feelings, although unidentified, are leading into your character of lacking confidence, lacking self worth. And I believe that empaths will understand this a lot. If you're leaning towards that more empathetic side of yourself, where you're a people pleaser and you're putting people above yourself and putting their thoughts, I mean, I think mothers fall into this category really easily because as a mother, your natural inclination, or so it it likely is, and it serves a great purpose, is towards your children and raising your children so that your children are successful and healthy and ready to face life. But if you're a mother and you're putting their feelings first, you're not showing them how to be the best version of themselves that they can be. They're looking at you as a mother, putting others ahead of yourself instead of working on, instead of like having a really strong emotional bodily presence. Just drinking some tea. Okay. And then the reason I bring that up is my mother was exactly that way. So my mother, God rest her soul, my mother would always put other people ahead of herself, and I admired her for that so very much. And I admire her so much in that I embodied that because that was my one representation of how to be a woman. How to be a woman is putting your family first, making sure that everyone else has enough. And she took a great care of me, so much so that it actually caused a little bit of codependency in me because she was showing me that I could rely on her to take care of these unmet needs that I had and that it would always be bridged. So when she passed away, I had to face that codependency that I had on her, and it was really, really hard to shed that. And I think a lot of people that have family members that they're codependent on, when they pass away, they don't really know to look at that. And so when we're looking at this self assessment piece, and thankfully I'd been working on all of this emotional awareness, the self assessment stuff, really diving deep into how do I better myself? How do I improve myself so that I can be the best version of me for my children? And being somebody who treats the children as a codependent, like if I'm embodying that of my mother to my children, then they're going to have a hard time when I pass away because they're leaning on me for these things that they should be independent on. Being Having an inner understanding of yourself is really, really key and important to being to feeling like a whole person. So development strategies on how to manage this is doing some mindfulness work. So, as we're looking at ways to develop this, meditation is so important and key to being able to shut the mind down and really just focus on you and how the feelings that come up and the responses in your body, and perhaps maybe if you have a certain relationship, answers that are coming in from the universe, that are there's God is like giving you some of this synchronistic answers. So as you meditate, you can slow the mind down. You kind of push away all the things that you are worried about. You're really being mindful about who you are in the moment. And then you can attune to the certain feelings that you have. Or if you're doing like a guided meditation where somebody is kind of leading you into yourself with a way to kind of picture yourself, you can have images or people or things come up. And then in dreams, you can also have these dreams, which are, kind of this spiritual, emotional expression of what you're going through in the moment. And all of these ways are great to tune into yourself and really fine tune what your emotional state is. The other piece is developing yourself is doing journaling. So journaling is also another great way that you can tune in to where you're feeling. You can write about situations that you're going through. So let's say that you're having a hard time at work and your boss is being, really authoritarian and it's triggering something in you. As you're experiencing that, you can sit down and really write and reflect on the feelings that you're having with that situation, and maybe think about what in my life is causing me to feel these feelings that I'm having from this authoritarian manager, and how do I process this? Let me dive deeper. This is how we develop awareness. I find that if you journaled or wrote a lot as a kid, or maybe you read a lot as a child, I always encourage people to look at the things that you were into as a child. So if you loved coloring, if you loved reading, if you loved walking out in nature, if you loved, playing on the swings, or on the playground or whatever the thing that brought you joy as a child, I love to remind people to come back to that. So if you loved writing and journaling, come back to that. And you're not doing it now, come back to that. If you liked to color, go get a box of coloring crayons, get a coloring book, or whatever you've got to do, whatever interests you, and color. If you loved painting, go get a watercolor. Like, everything is so inexpensive to get, and sometimes you can find it really, really inexpensive. If you go to garage sales, you can find these things really inexpensively. But as you're feeling those feelings, you're putting it out on paper. And so you're going to have this expression of whatever that feeling is. And that's why art is important. So, if reflective journaling is key, if that is something that interests you or that you can sit and really tune into, I think it's a healthy expression to that. The other piece is seeking feedback. So, what does this mean? You have to find somebody that you innately can trust, because a lot of the times it's going to be difficult for you to express these feelings. Okay, I'm going to share a story with you guys that's really, really deep and really sensitive, and I'm being very vulnerable with you. But there, I want to say like 4 months ago, I was having a really, really difficult time. Maybe it was 5 months ago. I was having a really, really difficult time. I felt alone. I was grieving for my mother still. And I still am to a point, but I was deep in mourning. And there's a lot of anger that was there, loneliness, and I also felt like I did not have that same feminine camaraderie that I had with my mother, with any other woman in my life. And that lack of relationship was, it was hurting inside. And then on top of that, there was also this, in the workplace, there was this like distance that happened. So my employee that I had that was managing, she had left and had not been replaced. And then I was given all of her work. So I had a ton of work piled on me. I didn't have the voice to say, this is too much. I need you. I mean, I did, and I got rid of a lot of the things, but it wasn't enough. I was still doing too much. And the way that I avoid emotions, and maybe you'll, if you're hearing this, you might feel the same way. The way that I don't deal with my emotions is I work. And I just work, and that's all I do. And I just focus on being really, really professional, really removed from my own personal situation. And then, I don't, I can just hide behind working because working is acceptable. People find it, you know, it's the easiest wall to hide behind is working. And so I'm watching that because I think a lot of people use work to hide from their emotional state, particularly women. And if you're a woman and you're hearing this and you're saying, yeah, that's me, likely you're feeling burnt out, you're spent emotionally and physically, and possibly in other ways, and likely your life is kind of out of balance. Just calling it there because I've been there. So here I am, still in mourning, working away, exhausting myself, and I'm feeling like I don't have somebody to reach out to. So, what did I do to mediate this? I finally just was like, I need to reach out to somebody because right now I'm not in a good place. I'm not feeling optimal. I feel like I'm like literally dying. And not just dying in a physical way, but like in an emotional way. I felt bereft of any like life, that I wasn't living. I was just going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home. And eventually that will like start impeding your relationships with your family. It'll start impeding relationships with work. And it's not healthy. What I'm explaining right now is definitely not a healthy thing. And so I called my friend, whom I revere very much. But the empath in me is like, nobody wants to hear what I have to, nobody wants to hear what I'm like dealing with. And that's a false story, but it's a story that many of us may carry where we're like, nobody wants to hear my problems. I'm just going to deal with them. And this, what I'm explaining right now comes from a lack of trust in others. So in my life, I've developed this really keen aspect of not trusting other people to help me to build myself. And I'm working on that. It's one of my my areas of improvement in my emotional frequencies. So I'm like, hey, do you have a minute? I just need to like word vomit all these feelings that I'm having. I'm going through it right now. And so she's like, yes, I have time for you. And she's so lovely. And I'm just like, here's all the things that I'm going through right now. I'm just gonna like throw it out there. And she was like, you got this. And she gave me really sound advice, which is what I needed. And I felt so much better after that. There was so much more clarity. The feelings that were bottled up and that were kind of eating away at me were now real. And now, since I had sent it out to somebody, I was receiving that feedback from a trusted friend that, there wasn't anybody else that I could think of that I could talk to in that way. And, a lot of that was not having my mother, which we talked for hours, and then the isolation that I was doing from overworking. So you can see how this strategy of seeking feedback is important. And, other things that you can do is you can get a therapist. I think most insurance or most companies have like EAP resources, which is, I don't know what EAP means, but it's like an employment assistant program where they can offer free services. So if you're going through grief or if you're going through divorce, you're having relationship issues, if you're, you know, if you're going through adoption, if you're going through abortion, like all these things that can cause feelings in you, there are resources out there. So if you're working, you likely have access to that kind of program. It's very popular. If you have insurance, your insurance will likely cover some therapy sessions, talk therapy. And I enjoy talk therapy because I'm just a communicative person, and so I know that about myself, and that is the best way for me to grow and learn and to get things out that are bottled in that I normally just kind of keep hidden inside. The other thing is you can find a coach and work with a coach. You can find friends, just find friends that are you trust. Look at their life and make sure that you know they have the capacity to handle the things that you're going to bring to them, and it's not going to burden them. So I knew that my friend would be able to transmute the things that I was telling her that I felt were really deep for me. I knew that she was emotionally, mentally, and spiritually capable of handling the intensity that came at her with, because I find myself to be a very intense person. And she gave me some good feedback. These people will find blind spots in your life that you're not seeing. And so the other thing in seeking feedback is being able to receive that criticism of whatever it is. And it's not a criticism saying like you're a terrible person, nobody's going to like you. It's a criticism of this is constructive. I'm giving you a gift because you're giving me, and now you're going to be receiving something back from me that is going to improve your life. Now, what happens when you have the reason why I say seek a trusted person is what happens when if you consistently help somebody and you're like being that that backdrop for them, that receiver of feedback, is you're taking that in and then you're giving this gift of feedback. If that person or if I didn't accept that feedback and use it and then continually come with the same problems but different circumstances, then you're likely going to lose the ear of that person giving you that feedback, because you're not hearing them and they're just like, we've gone through this a million times and I'm done talking about it. And you've seen that, like, I think guys are typically more like this. They're like, we already solved the problem. Like, what's the big deal? For women, sometimes it's like you need to kind of go through it. But I can think of like so many not talk shows, but like sitcoms where women are like, oh my gosh, I broke up with this boyfriend. And they're like, yeah, you've broken up with him like 5 times. We're done hearing about it. Much like in Sex and the City, Carrie's relationship with Big. I'm like, what? I rewatched a few of the episodes and I'm like, man, she's just like has low self worth, low confidence, and can't really talk to Big, and doesn't see that he's just not good for her. She can't let that go. And her friends graciously like sit there and listen to her all the time. And it's like she doesn't hear that. And then when she gets back with him, she has to like hide it from her friends. And so that somebody with accurate self-assessment and emotional self-awareness would see these reactions from their friends, and then how it is an impediment to their relationship because they're giving this information to her and she's not receiving it. And they're like, we don't want to hear about it anymore. At a certain time, they're just like, I'm done. All right. So that is personal awareness. The second part of this is social awareness, and I did bring it up before. Social awareness is a bit similar, but it's looking outwardly at how people are reacting. So it's a capacity to understand the emotions of others and how to like respond to those emotions. So empathy is a huge part of this, and empathy is its own pillar in the emotional intelligence frequency test, and social awareness is its own pillar in the emotional frequency test. So empathy is being able to sense and understand others' feelings. So when I didn't realize that I was as highly empathetic as I am until I think it was like 2020 is when I learned about what an empath was. I had no idea before. That's how crazy this all is. I think I was like 2020. So I was like 36, 37. So I mean, that's pretty far in life to like not realize what an empath is and how much it impacted me, because not only was I empathetic, but the the awareness that being an empath is of other people is it, unless you are like so deeply empathetic, is really intense. So the intensity of it can be a bit overwhelming. So when you have really high empathy, you can tell like if somebody is, you can almost tell. It's not like 100%, but you can tell when somebody's being dishonest. You can tell when somebody's having an issue. They don't even have to look at you. They can just be around you. When I learned what an empath is, I was like having like so many aha moments. I was like, oh my gosh, like no wonder. So one of my friends, he was, I didn't even know it, but he was going through a divorce, and we were coworkers, so we were working together, and he comes in one day, and I can tell from his just the way that he was walking and the way that he was interacting or lack of interacting, that he was having a bad day. And like immediately in my stomach, I could feel it. It was it was almost this tension in my stomach. I could feel his emotions of what was going on. And like here I am sitting trying to work, and as I'm working, I'm like, I can't even continue right now until I go talk to him. So I had to go talk to him, and I was like, what's going on? I can tell, I can sense like something is going on here. So that is an example of empathy, and then that social awareness piece of like something's wrong with this person that I'm connected to. Is empathy something you can learn? Yes, it is. It is something that you can develop. I don't think that narcissists are completely out of the woods of being empathetic. I think it's something that is learned. And the reason I say this is we have so many popular stories. One of my favorites, I don't want to say Disney story, but maybe I should say that, is Beauty and the Beast. So Beauty and the Beast, it starts with this prince who's very handsome, and this witch, this haggardly looking witch, comes to his doorstep, and she's like asking him for assistance, and he turns her away because she's ugly, and he's into himself and is like beautiful, and so she casts a spell on him, and he has until I think his 21st birthday to meet a woman and have her fall in love. And he eventually, Beauty or Belle, or however you want to say that, comes into the castle, hates him because she's trading places with her father because she loves her father and doesn't want him to be mistreated by this beast of a, and he's literally transformed into a beast. And his goal is to have her fall in love with him. So you guys have probably all seen the movie and or read the story, but eventually she falls in love. So they fall in love. So as soon as he like falls in love, the the feelings of empathy are like, I love this person. So love is this like really strong, powerful emotion. I mean, it's more than just an emotion. It's like the key into helping build empathy for others. So once you love, then you can raise that empathy. So he raised his empathy by falling in love with Belle because, she's the damsel here in the story. And eventually, that love breaks the curse and they get married, live happily ever after, allegedly. And so empathy a is something that we can build on. There are things that we can do to develop the empathy. And so I don't think the narcissists are in the weeds. And that is not a popular opinion. A lot of people want to blame the narcissist. They want to say that the narcissist is the reason why their life is in ruins instead of taking responsibility for themselves, of not having proper boundaries, not having the self-worth and self-confidence, like not doing the work of self-worth, self-confidence to stand up to that narcissist, to stand up to the manipulation and say, no, that's not happening. I'm standing in my sovereignty, in my own personal will of this is not the life that I'm going to be living. It sounds harsh. I'm not meaning to be harsh, but that is like my stance on it, and I believe it is 100% repairable. Okay, so continuing with the key element of social awareness, we are going to be moving into organizational awareness. So organizational awareness is being able to look at the group. So if you're in a work environment, you're looking at all of the characteristics of the people in the group and looking to see, like, are they motivated? Are they satisfied with their roles at the moment? And then understanding the dynamics of who works well together, who doesn't work well together. What can we do to connect these two or these three and make the group and or organization successful? So when you're keen on the emotions and responses of others, of how they're going to respond, of how they're going to understand, then you can use that knowledge to build a cohesive team, which is typically what we want. We want to be in communities that are cohesive. We want to be in friendship groups that are cohesive. We want to understand where they're coming from. We want to be able to respond in kind to their needs. So knowing what they like, knowing what their responses are going to be, knowing whether they can handle conflict, knowing whether they can lead others, and being able to say, you know what, you're a great leader, you have a great voice. I want you to be the voice of our team, versus not knowing where everybody is and then it kind of just falls apart. I think that this organizational awareness piece to the social awareness piece is going to be a critical piece of where we go in the future. So when we're looking at, I mean, I've been doing a lot of research on Pluto in Aquarius. And from all I can tell is like there's going to be a huge, because of this generational shift, there's going to be a huge systematic shift of how the system looks today versus how it's going to look in 5 years versus how it's going to look in 10 years. There's going to be a lot of shakeups just because of that generational influence. And I want to say it's about 20 years. It's like 15 to 20 years. So it's like this huge generational shift that's going on. And that Aquarian energy is going to affect in kind of our whole world, how it looks, how we react. And when we go through change, we're looking at how well are people going to handle that change? How well are they going to manage it? Are they going to be adaptable? Are they going to be resistant? Are they going to fall apart? Are they going to find the best in this situation? Are they going to rise above the situation? I believe the higher that your emotional frequency is, the more you can handle the shifts and changes that happen. That's just my opinion. I don't predict the future. It's just what I see trend wise. And I could be completely wrong, but I think that emotional intelligence is going to fall hugely into the future because of how are we going to handle that change as a local community, as a friend community, as a whatever community it is, as a nation, as a whole world. How are we handling that? All right. Finally, one of the other key elements that we're going to discuss is of social awareness is service orientation. So, service orientation is recognizing and meeting the needs of others. So, this is where you can look at your group and key in and hone in on what do these people need? How can I help them? So, people with this are looking at what's a niche that I can provide that is going to be helpful to whatever the community is. So insert the community. What what can I provide? What niche do I have, or what skills do I have that I can provide to this group or this community or the nation even? What can I provide to them that is going to be of service to them? A way that I did this is in 2020 when COVID restrictions happened, garden centers were like, I was seeing reports of garden centers being closed because it wasn't considered essential. And it was definitely a need at the time because as I was sitting out on my lanai, my front yard, my patio, I'm watching, all I can hear is people sawing, putting, chicken hatches up, putting garden beds in. That's all I could see. Like it was just 100% everyone was just putting these things together. So now I'm going online and I'm trying to find seeds. Everything's sold out. Like everything sold out. Or not everything, but a lot of things were sold out and very difficult to come by. And then you couldn't even go into the stores, to the garden centers, and go into those areas. And so I was like, well, I'm seeing that there is a demand for seeds. So I'm going to start up a donation based seed company. And so I did. I started up a seed saving company, and it was donation based. And people participated in it because they believed in it. And they were like, I love that you're doing this. Now I'm also going to do this, participate in that. So I received a ton of seeds that came in from different areas of, I have these extras. I saved these seeds. These are something that was handed down in our family, or this is something our family loves and we plant it every year. And, beautiful stories on it. And so that was an act of service that I did for my community that was far reaching. I even got stuff from international areas. So finding those services that you can provide to your community, to your local community, to your friend group, to whatever, if you have a group on Facebook, like whatever it is, whatever you can provide to them is going to be valued and you'll see it in return. And that taught me a lot about receiving because I'm a giver. I'm a service acts of service person. I'm like I'm doing. I want to do for people, and it was kind of a lesson for me to learn how to receive. So it was a beautiful symbiotic relationship of knowing that all that is given to me, even though if I give it, all that is given to me is a blessing, and that I need to receive it in as a blessing, and learn that that's okay. That goes with compliments. It goes with gifts. It goes with whatever. And I'm not necessarily a gift person, but it was really hard for me to like accept the financial benefits of that. So bringing that in. Now we're going to look at development strategies. So when we are looking at building up that social awareness, we are looking at active listening. So active listening is very important because you're listening for the key terms. You're focused fully on the speaker. You're observing their verbal and nonverbal cues. So when I was talking about my my coworker friend coming in, and I could tell that he was downtrodden, something was affecting him. Um, he was giving me nonverbal cues, so I'm like honing in on those nonverbal cues, and I can see, what's going on with the story, and I can ask questions in kind to figure out, okay, where are we here? Um, the next thing is perspective taking. So, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes to understand their viewpoints. Maybe somebody made a decision that was not necessarily a decision that you would have made if you were in their shoes. So, thinking about why, or maybe even asking them, why did you make that decision? I just want to understand it a little bit more in full. And people are typically happy to do that. So, when we're looking at developing a little bit more social awareness, we're definitely asking questions. We're trying to take a look at it from a different perspective. And people that have this higher awareness of that are going to be able to kind of shift back and forth into what would I do? Why did they do? And then cultural competence. So, learning about other backgrounds is also helpful. So, if you have a diverse group of people that you're dealing with, just being able to understand what their backgrounds are and and maybe ask some questions. Obviously, some people might be sensitive to that, so you know, be respectful when you're asking that, but figure out what their life is like. Kind of befriend them and see if there's some things about their upbringing that are similar to yours or are different, and that will help you with the interpersonal interaction. So, what we're working on doing when we're trying to build these communities and groups, we're trying to find something that we all connect on so that we're all working together cohesively. Like, it really is important for that interpersonal communication that we're all being, respectful to whatever their situation is. I like to be, I like to call it being a 90s friend. So, like, a 90s friend is like, I just think about all the different backgrounds. It just felt like you could talk about it a little bit more clearly, a little bit more succinctly, and there wasn't like this judgment, which I feel as time has progressed, it feels like there's a lot more judgment, and it's okay to be judgmental. Like, that's an important piece into like kind of honing in on yourself. But at the same time, like understanding others, asking questions, and being open to that, and explaining from your point of view of, here's how I was raised. Like, for me, I was raised, I was raised pretty pagan. I spent a lot of time out in the mountains with my family, and I was, picking mushrooms and berries and learning like all the flora and like their names, like Latin names, and it was just something that I was interested in. So, and my mom was definitely like a key player in that. She's like, that was her passion, and so we went out and did that. And so I learned a lot from that, and because of that, I wasn't engaged in a lot of the social things that were going on at the time. I didn't even know who New Kids on the Block were, and I was like right prime in that age of like what do they call it, like boy band. I was like right in the prime age where I would be a target audience, but because of my upbringing, I had no idea of any of that. I had no idea of any of television references. I just didn't watch television. And so I lost a lot of the pop culture part of my background, which made it really awkward to integrate into friend circles, for me personally, because I didn't have those connections. I didn't know what the things were. And that made it really difficult for me to have peer-to-peer relationships. So that was part of my background. Okay, that's kind of all I had today. All these podcasts that I'm doing are meant mastery, which is my one of my goals in life is to achieve a personal mastery, to raise my vibration, to become the best person that I can be. And it's through setting goals to be this person. It's to develop more of a self-discipline, to be more who I want to be and not hide behind a mask. So I hope that these are helpful for you guys as well. I appreciate the people that do come on and watch and listen, because paying attention and getting that attention is a really kind payment. And so I thank you guys so much. I know that when I'm giving my attention, I'm paying attention to something else, that it's a limited thing that you have. So just be watchful of where your payments are going when it comes to your attention and your interaction with things, and really look at why am I doing that. So sometimes I will find myself on reels for a little longer than I anticipated, and that I'm paying attention to those things. Part of it is like this study and seeing trends of where are people, but I also know that it's algorithm based, and I can see how different social medias are their algorithms are taking me in different locations. And so just kind of look at that. We're trying to be really aware of where the attention is going. We're being aware of what our emotions are. We're being aware of who we are, so that when we are having these assessments, when we're doing the work, that we are being the best that we can be and improving on who we can be as well. So I hope this was helpful. I do have some links, and I believe this month I'm gonna open up. I think I'm gonna open up 14 free sessions from now until the end of the month. So if you are interested in that, in the show notes description, there is a link to my Calendly, and I have to change some of that because I'm not going to be available on the days that I do my podcasts. But anybody that's watching this that wants to have a free session, all I'm asking for is to give a testimonial. So if that is you, then I'm happy to work with you. My gifting is helping people kind of work on their business, professional work purpose, like what they want to be here in this realm. So if that is something that speaks to you, or maybe if you just have something that is you're stuck on, these are both perfectly good things to bring to that. I know that I have the Calendly, so if you are interested in this, I do have a couple things that I like for you to do before you go on and book that. So give me a little bit of time. I'll post it in the YouTube, and then I'll post it on my page that are my pages that I am opening that up. So if there's something that you would like to work on, you're definitely available to take one of those. It's going to be 1 hour sessions, and I'm just asking for some testimonial feedback. So hopefully that sounds interesting to you. Well, it has been a lovely hour. I hope you guys had a good time, and I will see you guys next week.